Hey, this is Steve. I just want to do a quick video. I've been thinking a bit about giving people some insight and suggestions on doing muscle testing. A lot of times I see people posting who want to do muscle testing and want to do more with the emotion code, and they feel they lack confidence in the accuracy of their muscle testing. So I just wanted to give some things that have helped me, and maybe it'll help you too. So one of the first things I would say is, and this may sound weird, but to be more confident in your muscle testing, be more confident. That may seem like a strange thing, but one thing you can do is you can very carefully choose your physiology and your state when you do muscle testing. For example, if muscle testing is new to you and you're not really sure how to do it and you're not sure if you're any good at it, think of something that you are actually really good at. And think how you would hold your body, and how would you breathe, and what kind of physical state you would put yourself in if you were doing that thing that you're actually confident in. And if you consciously put yourself in that state when you're doing muscle testing, I think you'll have better success. The next thing to think about is having reasonable expectations. For some reason, I think sometimes people think that if they're not 100% accurate on muscle testing, that they're not doing it right. And look, nothing could be further from the truth. It's a highly unreasonable expectation to think that you're going to be correct all the time on muscle testing. A couple simple things to think about. If people were 100% accurate on muscle testing, you know what? You could just simply muscle test the next lotto numbers and win the lottery every month. And clearly, nobody's doing that, okay? The other thing, even if you listen to Dr. Brad talk about muscle testing, one time he had a woman who had a scan, I think it was of her kidney, showing tumors, right? And he muscle tested her body, said, no tumor, no cancer, nope, And it was weeks before her body said, yes, I actually do have a tumor. So also think about this, I recently read an article where 80% of the people who go and get a second diagnosis after going to the doctor find that they get a different diagnosis the second time. 80% of the time. And that's like for medical science, okay? And so understand that you could be wrong a decent amount of the time. But think about this. Number one, if you're wrong doing muscle testing and doing emotion code work for people, no one gets hurt. You're not going to prescribe the wrong medication for them, do the wrong surgery. It's not so dangerous, okay? But if you do it for people and you keep doing it, even maybe you think you're not being super accurate, you just have to land on a few key issues and release them, and you can still profoundly impact someone's life. So 100% accuracy is not important to do it, okay? I remember years ago when I was just using muscle testing to test supplements, my sister had been going to a naturopathic doctor who did a lot of muscle testing, and she tested my sister on a certain supplements, and then I tested my sister. Now, the naturopathic doctor tested my sister at needing 1 a day. I tested her as needing like 10. It was more than 10. It was like a really high amount, unusual, okay? And so here we are, two people both muscle testing the same person on the same product, getting diametrically opposed results. So for me, I looked at it, I go, well, number one, that how much you needed surprised me, okay? One insight for you is if you're never surprised when you do muscle testing, it's probably because you're not being accurate. You're just confirming your bias, right? The woman who had muscle tested her, this product was sold by a network marketing company. Well, this woman hated network marketing companies, didn't believe that they sold good products. Maybe a bias. She also didn't like people spending money. She had a lot of issues with money. So again, maybe there was a bias on not telling my sister to take a lot amount. So for me, I looked at this situation, and it was a type of antioxidant. And my sister was living in a work environment that was very poisonous to her and was also very sensitive. And so for me, that made sense in the context. Oh, excuse me. So what I did, I said, well, try it, see if it works. Then you'll know, right? So don't have unreasonably high expectations. Play around with it, have fun, realize that even if you're only maybe 20% accurate, you could still really help somebody or make some shifts, right? So in keeping with that, one of the most important things I think is to let go of your ego when doing muscle testing. If you get in a situation and, the big question is, you might be wrong. So what? So if your ego is very involved, it's very stressful to be wrong. Why? Because your identity and value is connected to how well you're doing something or not doing something. You put pressure on yourself. You allow other people to put pressure on you. You think you're not a good practitioner. All these different things come flying at you when you think you're being wrong. And if you can let go of that, you can really see some huge shifts. I'll give you an interesting example. First of all, think about this. When Dr. Brad had this woman who clearly did have a tumor and cancer in her body, and he muscle tested her as that what she didn't, clearly that muscle test was wrong. But he didn't allow it to impact his self-confidence. He was just like, that's interesting. Not, I wonder if I'm not doing this right anymore. It's like, no, it's interesting. That's all. I have found that it's when I work with clients using the body code, sometimes I'll get answers out of the body code which aren't typically categories that they were designed for that, but it will be very helpful. And I'll give you one example. I had a client who wanted me to help her with her relationship with food, okay? And she's very overweight, need to lose a bunch of weight, and she's like, it wasn't a healthy relationship with food, okay? So I'm like, okay, well, let's work on this. So in the body code, I went to toxicity, chemical toxicity, recreational drug toxicity, cocaine. And, when you're working with someone and a recreational drug comes up, that can be a little bit of an interesting conversation. It's like, are you doing coke? I was pretty sure she wasn't doing coke. So I thought, that's weird. And I said to her, I go, you're not doing cocaine, are you? She's like, no, I'm not doing cocaine. So if I allowed my ego to get involved or allowed to put pressure on myself, I would have gone, I'm doing this wrong. Because every time I muscle tested, it was like, yes, cocaine, yes, cocaine. Not cocaine, no. Cocaine, yes. Very clear, okay? And so instead of stressing out and freaking out, I just kind of took a step back, took a deep breath, thought, I wonder what this could be, all right? And then I made this statement, cocaine, also known as chocolate. And it was like a yes. And when I said that to her, she goes, oh, you're totally accurate. She goes, I tell everyone that chocolate is my crack cocaine. And I'm like, oh, well, you may need to stop doing that if you want to change your relationship with food, okay? So that's just an example of just being neutral, detaching your ego, being totally focused on helping people. So personally, when I work with clients, one thing I tell them up front, I go, hey, here's the deal. I'm not super attached to being accurate. I just want to help you. If in our session we come up with something that doesn't make sense, no problem. We'll toss it. Who cares? Okay? But that attitude allows me, it reduces pressure, it reduces stress. People don't stress out about things, and allows me actually typically to be more accurate. So one of the other things to understand is sometimes you need to understand the statistics sometimes of when you do come up with accurate things, the statistical likelihood of just guessing is crazy off the chart. We're talking about 1 in 10,000, 1 in 20,000, 1 in whatever. Statistically, what you look at is you look at like, okay, a trapped emotion or heart wall, that's 2 options, right? So 2 times however many options are in the body code, was that 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. It's like 1 in 60. Okay, so 2 times 60 is 1 in 120, right? Okay, then maybe you take someone who's 70 and you do 1 in 120 times 70, okay? And all of a sudden the statistics of you simply guessing are non-existent. I'll give you a good example. I was working with a woman, she was about 70 years old, and just doing testing, I came up with this, and I'm like, it was just kind of super specific and very outside the box. And at first I'm like, wow, I wonder if I'm being accurate. So I said to her, I go, okay, this is going to sound totally strange, but this is what I'm coming up with. And I said to her, I go, I think that when you were 7 years old, a disembodied spirit cursed you through your sister. Now that's really weird, kind of weird, very specific. And she looked at me, she goes, oh no, you're totally accurate. I'm like, what? What in the world happened? How do you know immediately that I'm accurate? She goes, I remember it clearly. She goes, it was the night before my Catholic confirmation. And my sister spewed the most nasty, hateful things on me, like, you're going to hell, and all these crazy stuff. And I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, I think your sister got hijacked by a disembodied spirit to do that. So when you have experiences like that, you're like, wow, this is super accurate. And if you can detach your ego and be neutral and practice, what you'll find is you can be freakishly accurate over and over and over and over and over with clients. And the more accurate you are, the more specific, the more things you can shift for people. One other real interesting thing to understand is I recently read a book called Stealing Fire. And the book is about ecstasis or ecstatic states and how different people get into ecstatic states. But one of the things I realized is that muscle testing kind of taps into a higher level of consciousness, okay? I call it tapping into like quantum physics Wi-Fi, all right? And I think Dr. Brad mentioned once, he goes, muscle testing isn't a parlor trick, interesting about that, sometimes I can be bizarrely accurate in muscle testing people. But if my youngest daughter says, oh, let's play a game, I'm going to think of a color. So there's like 1 in 7 options. She goes, tell me what color I'm thinking of. I'm like 100% wrong every single time. Why? Because it's not a game. I'm not doing it to help someone. So one of the very helpful things for me in this book was he described the 4 common characteristics of an ecstatic state, what it does for people, okay? And it's selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness. So when I'm muscle testing, if it's about me proving my ego to you that I'm fabulous, wow, you just stepped out of the selflessness, right? Timelessness, if you feel you're putting pressure on yourself to get a lot done or to hurry, or people need you to fix them now, it's like, you step out of that timelessness. Effortlessness, if, I tend to find most often my sessions are like fun and they're easy and they make me feel brilliant. And then I work with other people and it feels hard and heavy and it's like, ugh. And like, man, you're stepping out of this effortlessness, right? And richness, okay? If you can get these other 4 right, the content of the muscle testing is incredibly rich and insightful and helpful and can totally shift people's lives. So, hope that makes some sense. A lot of times people will talk about, if you want to do muscle testing correctly, you need to make sure you're adjusted and you're hydrated and blah, 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 all these different things. And there may be some accuracy in that. But I think more so it's more important to be in an emotional state where you can feel more empowered and detached and let go of your ego. And letting go of your ego is not the easiest thing. Dr. David Hawkins, who did tons of work using muscle testing to test different levels of consciousness, he would say you have to have a certain level of consciousness to do it. And at the higher level of consciousness, when you're in power, one of the things you're doing is you're let going of the need for outside influence and energy to tell you what you're worth. Okay. The guy I initially took a course from to learn how to do muscle testing. I now notice if I go back to his website that before you can actually buy the equipment to do muscle testing, I use a testing stick, that he requires you to go through a program to get rid of a lot of the emotional stuff that's holding you back on doing muscle testing. So if you're having a hard time doing muscle testing, you might have a practitioner work with you and identify what your level of emotional consciousness is regarding doing muscle testing, what you feel when you do it, what's disconnecting you from being more empowered in doing it. And sometimes just fixing that emotional stuff for you will give you a big shift. Anyways, hope that's helpful. If you guys are watching this on the Facebook group, and if you post any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. There's massive amounts of super smart other people who will probably see it as well, and I'm sure they can also help you. So have a wonderful week. I appreciate all of you, and you, Dr. Brad, for the work you've done. Thank you so much.